The blizzard was supposed to last 2 days, then two became three. Then I was on day four, holed up in my cabin. The only thing I could see outside was the snow, a white, shifting void that obscured the rest of the mountain range. I looked for the stars out of habit, but they were gone, buried behind layers of storm. The sky was black, thick with cloud, snow, and night. The tree line, usually clear, was faint now. A smudge of darkness barely separated nature from the cabin. The thick snow blurred the edges, turning trees into shadows that shifted with the wind. What had once been a sharp, familiar boundary was now lost in the white of the snow and the darkness of the night. I was ready, at least. Before the storm hit, I'd driven down the mountain to the nearby town to stock up on supplies, like I always do. I filled my old F-150 with food, water, and anything else I might need to ride out the worst of it. Back at the clearing near the cabin, I chopped firewood. I already had enough stacked to last through a second ice age, but it gave me something to do, something to break up the quiet. All of it helped. The rhythmic thunk of the axe hitting wood, the smell of fresh pine, the way the pile grew bigger with every swing. It kept me from thinking too much. I don't get visitors. That's not me being dramatic, it's just a fact. The nearest neighbor is a 40-minute drive down the mountain, and that's when the roads are clear, which they hadn't been for days. That's why, when I heard a knock, I nearly dropped the mug of cocoa I was holding. It wasn't loud, just two slow, deliberate raps on the door. Then nothing. I stood there in the kitchen for a few seconds, listening, waiting to hear it again. The storm was still going strong outside, but beneath the wind, the silence settled back in like a blanket. No second knock came, no voice followed. I figured I imagined it. Cabin fever and all. Wouldn't have been the first time. Still, I walked to the door. Something in me wouldn't let it go. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I was just so starved for company that I wanted someone to be out there. I opened the door, and there he was, a kid in his early 20s, maybe. He could have passed for a college student if he wasn't half frozen. His face was pale as paper, lips blue, eyes wide and glassy like he wasn't fully there. Snow clung to his coat in heavy clumps, and he was shaking so hard his teeth clicked together. "God," I said before I even thought about it. He didn't answer, didn't even look at me, just stood there trembling in the doorway like he didn't know where he was. I should have hesitated, should have asked what he was doing out in a blizzard, who he was, how he got up here. But I didn't. If I closed the door and he died out there, I'd never be able to live with myself. That part of me, the part that used to be a husband, the part that could have been a father one day, was still there somewhere, even if it was quieter now. "Come in," I said. "Come on, let's get you warm." He stepped inside without a word. The wind slammed the door shut behind him. He left a trail of melting snow as I led him to the fire. His boots were soaked through. I had him sit in the old armchair by the hearth while I threw a couple of logs on and got the flames high. I asked if he was hurt. He didn't answer. "Can you talk?" I tried again. "Tell me your name?" Still nothing. Just that distant stare, like he was looking through the fire, past it, like he saw something there that I couldn't. He looked terrible. Skin pale and tight over bone, lips cracked, nose bleeding slightly from the cold. I knelt beside him to check for frostbite, and that's when I saw it. On his side, just below the ribs, his jacket torn and shirt soaked with blood, was a wound, a deep bite. Ragged and raw, already darkening around the edges. It wasn't new, a day old, maybe more. The skin around it was red and hot. "You didn't say you were bitten," I muttered, more to myself than to him. He flinched when I touched it, the first reaction I'd gotten out of him. His eyes snapped to mine, wild for just a second, then they went vacant again. It didn't look like a wolf bite. I'd seen those before. Wolves tear and rip. This was cleaner. Too clean. I patched it up as best I could, cleaned it, wrapped gauze tight around his ribs. He winced, but didn't make a sound. Just watched me, breathing shallow like a cornered animal. After that, I set him up in the guest room. It had a bed, a thick blanket, and a space heater in the corner. He didn't say a word, just lay down, curled in on himself, eyes still wide open. I left him there and closed the door gently behind me. The cabin felt smaller after that, like he'd brought something in with him. A weight, a shift in the air. I tried to ignore it. I made myself tea, sat by the fire, and held a book in my lap that I didn't read. I checked on him an hour later. He was asleep, out cold, No fever, at least none I could feel. I left the door cracked, just in case. I must have nodded off. The fire was down to coals when I woke up, the house quiet as a grave. I could hear the wind screaming against the windows, the old trees creaking out front, but nothing inside. No footsteps. No coughing. No movement from the guest room. I was just about to check again when I heard the floorboard creak. He was standing in the hall, just watching me. "God," I said, nearly spilling my tea. He blinked slowly, looking around like he wasn't sure where he was. "Sorry," he said, voice hoarse and dry. "Didn't mean to scare you." "It's all right," I said. "You're lucky to be alive. What were you doing up here?" He scratched at his bandage. "Hiking," he said. "With my girlfriend, Emma." I waited. "We were camping in the woods a few nights ago, got caught in the storm, thought we'd ride it out." He stopped. His jaw tightened. "We heard something outside the tent. I thought it was wolves, big ones. We stayed quiet, but it didn't matter. They tore through the side." He swallowed hard. His eyes were wet now. "I ran. I didn't even see what they looked like. Just teeth. It was wrong. Too many of them." Emma screamed, and then his voice trailed off. "You didn't see her after that?" He shook his head. "I ran until I couldn't. Then I saw your cabin." "You're safe now," I said. "Just rest." He nodded and walked back to the guest room like he was sleepwalking. I tried to sleep again. Even poured myself another mug of cocoa just to have something warm in my hands. But the air felt heavier now, like it was pressing in on me. Sometime after midnight, I heard the floor creak. I looked up, expecting to see him again. But the hall was empty. Only the faint sound of the bathroom door clicking shut at the end of the hall. Light spilled out in a thin line beneath the frame. I waited. 5 minutes, then 10. The pipes groaned once, a long, low sound, like the cabin itself was holding its breath. Then I heard glass break. I walked to the bathroom and cleared my throat loudly. "You all right in there?" No response. Still nothing. Steam started seeping out from beneath the door, slow and crawling, hugging the floor like smoke. It looked wrong. Not sharp and white like steam from a shower. This was thicker, heavier, gray around the edges, like breath fogged on glass. I stood there another minute, then stepped closer. I pressed my knuckles to the door and knocked once, gently. "You hear me, son?" Silence. No shuffle of movement, no cough, no running water. The wood felt cold beneath my hand, not warm like it should have been with steam pouring through. Just still, dead and cold. I leaned in, pressed my ear to the door and listened. Nothing. Every instinct told me to walk away. Let it be. The boy had been through enough. Maybe he needed time. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he'd broken the mirror by accident. Maybe I was imagining things again. But my gut had gone cold, and it wasn't from the storm. I wrapped my hand around the knob. It was slick with condensation. I turned it slowly, as quietly as I could, until the latch gave way with a soft click. Holding my breath, I opened the door. What I saw shook me. The kid was split open vertically down the middle, bisected with horrific precision from the crown of his head through his face and sternum, all the way down to his groin. The bathroom looked like a butcher's block, the tiled floor beneath stained dark and wet. His two halves lay on the floor like broken mannequins separated by a sickening gap. Ribs, stark white and splintered, jutted outward like snapped fences. Muscles still glistened, unnervingly pink, hanging in strips. Coiled lengths of intestine and dull, exposed organs lay motionless, some still clinging to one half of the body. Where his spine should have been was only emptiness, a hollowed-out channel running through his core. It looked as though something massive had forced its way out from the inside. The precision of the split through bone and tissue was alien. Wrong. Then, through the haze of shock, a draft hit me. A bone-deep cold that had nothing to do with the storm. My eyes slowly followed it. The small bathroom window, usually sealed tight against the mountain air, was shattered. Not cracked, blown outward, as if something had exited through it. Jagged shards of glass glittered on the sill and floor. Wind howled through the opening, carrying stinging snow inside. From the half of the young man's body closest to the window, a trail began. A glistening, repulsive smear of black and dark red slime snaked across the white tiles, past the toilet, over the shattered glass, and out through the broken window frame, vanishing into the blizzard beyond. At first, I thought it was blood, but it was thicker, viscous, faintly pulsing in the dim light. It left behind an oily sheen wherever it touched. Whatever had been inside him, whatever had torn him apart and fled, had left its mark. I finally found my breath. It came as a cold, panicked gasp that tasted of iron and the strange, rotten smell filling the room. I backed away slowly, never taking my eyes off the split body or the dark trail leading outside. Every instinct screamed to run. Not down the mountain, I'd never make it, but away from that room. It was out there now. Something that had hidden inside a man, then discarded the body and crawled into a storm that would kill anything normal. The thought of it reaching the small town I'd driven through days earlier sent a surge of adrenaline through me. It couldn't make it to town. Not on my watch. My feet moved before my mind caught up. I didn't bother closing the bathroom door. The horror had already escaped. I passed through the living room where the dying fire's warm glow felt like a cruel joke and went straight to the master bedroom. I opened the closet. Behind my winter gear, right where it always was, sat my Remington 870. I pulled it free, the cold steel a familiar weight. I grabbed a box of double-aught buckshot, spilling crimson shells onto the carpet, and loaded the shotgun quickly. The sharp shick-shick of the pump cut through the howl of the wind. It had been years since I'd aimed a gun at anything other than a deer. But this wasn't hunting. This was stopping something that had already died and kept going. I wasn't a hero, just a widower with a cabin, a shotgun, and a terrible realization. I was the last line of defense. The storm that had trapped me had trapped it too. I checked the hall one last time, glanced at the ruined bathroom, then moved to the front door. I flipped the deadbolt and shouldered it open. The wind hit like a physical blow. A blinding wall of white stole my breath and burned my eyes. The roar of the storm swallowed everything. I searched for the trail. The porch was already buried under fresh snow, but I knelt, shielding my face. There, outside the bathroom window, just beyond the perimeter, the black and crimson smear was still visible. Already freezing, but not yet buried. It lay against the clean snow like spilled ink. It didn't drip. It looked like something had slithered. I followed it, sinking knee-deep into the drifts. The cold burned my lungs. I kept the shotgun raised, its dark barrel steady against the white void. The trail widened as it led past the woodpile and straight toward the tree line. The trees loomed like black specters, groaning beneath the snow. I pushed forward, driven by the lingering metallic stench that clung to the air. I was maybe 20 yards from the cabin when I saw it. At first, I thought it was a buck driven mad by the storm. It was that size, low to the ground, barely visible where the clearing met the forest. But it didn't move like a deer. It scuttled, it crouched there, massive and hunched, creating a brief pocket of stillness in the chaos. I stopped, sinking deeper into the snow, and raised the shotgun, clicking the safety off. Through the shifting veil of snow, details began to form. It was covered in thick black fur, matted and clotted. The hair was plastered down with the same dark slime that stained my bathroom floor. Its bulk looked distorted, swollen, but its posture was low and crawling. It had too many limbs. Thick, jointed appendages moved in unison beneath it, slick and glistening. The sight was a contradiction. Dense fur layered over something raw and wet. It looked like a living wound wrapped in an animal's skin. Then it lifted something. Its head, I realized, with a jolt of pure dread. It was impossibly large and angular, and for a moment I couldn't even tell where the face was. Then the wind cleared the snow just enough for me to see a flash of wet, sickly red where eyes or a mouth should have been, reflecting the faint glow from my cabin window. It didn't see me. Its attention was fixed on the tree line, already starting to merge with the darkness. It moved low and fast, dragging its massive, repulsive body away from the cabin and toward the mountain pass that led to town. I tightened my grip on the shotgun, ignoring the tremor running through my arms. The blizzard made the shot difficult, but the distance was short. If it reached the trees, it would be gone. I took the slack out of the trigger. There was no hesitation left, only the raw, instinctive need to stop it before it vanished. I squeezed. The Remington thundered, a violent boom that tore through the storm. The muzzle flash burned the creature's shape into my vision. The recoil slammed into my shoulder, and a heartbeat later, the buckshot struck its torso. It didn't fall. Instead, it let out a sound that cut through the wind, a screaming wail, metallic and tearing, like steel ripping through soaked fabric. It was pain, but also rage, and it sent a spike of terror straight through me. The impact scattered clumps of matted fur and sprayed thick, dark slime into the snow. It scrambled. For all its bulk, it moved with terrifying speed, abandoning the open ground and plunging into the black wall of trees. I worked the pump, clack, chunk, ejecting the shell and chambering another. I didn't wait to see if it was dying. I only knew I had to keep it from reaching the pass. I chased it into the forest, following the churned snow and dark trail it left behind. The trees dulled the wind but deepened the snow. Every step burned. I focused only on the trail. Gouged drifts, smeared slime, deep impressions from too many limbs. I ran until my lungs screamed, until my face ached with cold, until the sound of its labored movement vanished beneath my own breathing. Then I stopped. The trail was gone. One moment there had been a clear path of destruction. The next, the snow was untouched, except for my own footprints. I moved forward, scanning the ground, thinking the storm might have buried it. It hadn't faded. It had ended. I turned slowly, shotgun shaking in my hands, eyes straining through the white haze. My breath caught as I glimpsed a smear of movement in my peripheral vision, high above me. I looked up. There was no ground trail because it had continued upward. Dark slime streaked the bark of nearby trees in vertical smears. The creature hadn't slowed. It had climbed. It was above me now, hidden in the canopy. My heart slammed against my ribs. In seconds, I had gone from hunter to target. I searched for cover. About 10 feet away stood a massive ancient pine, partially uprooted long ago. Its exposed roots formed a dark hollow beneath the trunk. I dove for it, dropping into the snow and wedging myself beneath the largest root. I pulled the shotgun tight to my chest, my back pressed against frozen earth. I went still, forcing myself into the shadows. Silence returned, broken only by the storm. I stared up through the tangled roots, waiting for falling slime, a shaking branch, the moment that massive, glistening shape dropped from above. I barely breathed. Then snow sifted down, not from the storm, but from the branches. Chunks fell, followed by a heavy thud nearby. It had dropped. The creature was on the ground again, but now it moved differently. Not scrambling, waddling. Low and deliberate, like something pretending to be harmless. Its size was unmistakable now, and I heard the wet, squelching sound of its many limbs against the snow. It entered the clearing around my hiding place. The roots dug into my spine as I pressed myself flat, already aiming the shotgun through the narrow opening. My finger rested on the trigger. The creature hesitated, sniffing. Its head lifted and twisted in sharp, searching motions. It wasn't looking for me. The storm was masking my scent. Wind and snow scattered everything: gunpowder, sweat, fear. By chance alone, the blizzard had become my ally. Then it stopped. The sniffing ended. Slowly, the massive shape turned toward my hiding place. It advanced, filling the gap between the roots with its bulk. I felt the vibration of its weight through the frozen ground. Its head lowered. For the first time, I saw it clearly. The head was the size of a moose skull, but wrong, too broad, too blunt. No eyes, just slick, blood-colored flesh. Thick black fur hung in clotted sheets matted with slime. Woven through it were dozens of short leech-like appendages, glistening and writhing as they searched the air. It leaned closer. The smell hit me, metallic slime mixed with raw meat. I was staring into the mouth of the thing that had walked out of a man. One of the slick tendrils brushed the tip of my nose. It knew. The head recoiled slightly, the wet flesh tightening in recognition. The prey was found. It was about to strike. I didn't let it. I drove the barrel of the Remington up and sideways, the muzzle nearly touching the side of its monstrous head. The blast was muffled and wet. An awful, contained thunder. The buckshot tore into the creature's skull from below, and it erupted. A horrifying geyser of black slime, wet fur, and bone fragments sprayed into the roots above me. The creature shuddered once, a massive muscular tremor, before its great weight collapsed. It didn't fall on me, thankfully, but it landed directly outside my hiding spot, its bulk completely blocking the entrance. I lowered the shotgun, the ringing in my ears louder than the wind. I was trapped beneath a mountain of steaming, reeking horror. As the ringing faded, it was replaced by the sickening sound of hot, wet matter sizzling on frozen snow. I was entombed. The creature's immense, cooling mass pressed against the root system, sealing my makeshift bunker. The wind returned, muffled by the sheer volume of dead, hairy flesh. I lowered the hammer on the shotgun slowly, my entire body shaking as the delayed reaction hit. The smell was overwhelming: copper, sulfur, and the sour stench of the creature's slime. The muzzle of the Remington was coated in gore. I had to get out. If the blizzard kept up, I'd be trapped here beneath a rotting carcass until spring. I shoved the shotgun's barrel against the creature's flank, testing its weight. Nothing moved. It was like pushing a waterlogged oak. Shifting my weight, I reached with my free hand and found the edge of the root that had shielded me. I braced my shoulder against the frozen dirt and pushed. The corpse shifted an inch, then settled back. I needed another way. I turned the shotgun and used the heavy butt of the stock to scrape away dirt and packed snow behind me, burrowing deeper into the root system. The ground was frozen solid, but the leverage widened a narrow gap between two thick roots. Gasping, I squeezed through. I emerged on the far side of the massive pine, away from the creature's bulk. My heart pounded as I stood and walked back to inspect the kill. It lay motionless, its many limbs contorted in the snow. But something was wrong. Where the head should have been, there was only ruined fur and pulped bone. A thin, milky steam rose from the wound. Then I noticed the blood, or the lack of it. It wasn't bleeding out. The dark slime oozed slowly, congealing almost immediately in the cold. The trauma was severe, yet the internal volume felt wrong, like I'd shot a sack of thick fluid instead of a living organism. My eyes caught the creature's flank where the first shot had struck. The matted fur was gone, revealing pale, slick skin stretched tight over its massive frame. The skin was healing. Slowly, visibly, the wounds began knitting together. The torn tissue pulled inward, closing the gaps. The steam wasn't cooling blood, it was heat from something burning inside. My breath caught. The idea that the shotgun had ended this was a lie. I had minutes, maybe less, before it was whole again. I needed to get back to the cabin, not just for ammunition, but for something final. I ran. Snow swallowed my footing as branches whipped my face. The cabin appeared through the storm like a promise I didn't trust. I burst inside, slammed the door, and threw the deadbolt, knowing it wouldn't hold for long. I ran past the bathroom and straight to the storage closet. I ignored the deer rifle. Bullets were uncertain. Fire wasn't. Behind the winter tires sat 2 red 5-gallon jerry cans. I grabbed one and yanked out the kerosene as well. It would burn slower, hotter. I needed a wick, so I tore a thick kitchen towel free and stuffed it into my pocket. Last stop, the drawer. I grabbed the long butane lighter used for the pilot light. I was ready, but too late. The silence shattered with a sound I knew well from cutting timber. A slow, tearing rip. It came from the side of the cabin, the bathroom wall. It wasn't trying to fit through the window, it was ripping the structure apart. I heard frozen pine splinter and beam snap under impossible strength. I had to assume it was healed, or close enough. The storm that had hidden me now threatened to bury me alive. I had no choice. I had to take the fire to it. I yanked the front door open, the kerosene can heavy and cold in my hand, and plunged back out into the blizzard. The creature wasn't at the door. I rounded the corner of the cabin, the heavy kerosene sloshing, and saw the damage. A huge section of the wall near the bathroom was ruined, wood splintered and insulation streaming out like cotton guts. The creature was there, its massive, steaming head pulled back from the shredded wall. It saw me instantly. The bluff of the blizzard had been called. I was standing in the open, and it was less than 20 feet away. It began its repulsive, slow waddle toward me. Its limbs churned the snow. The black slime glistened, its regenerating head tilted low. It was honed in on me. I dropped to a knee, pulling the heavy can close. I twisted the plastic cap off, then tore the towel from my pocket, shoving one end into the neck of the can to soak. The stench of the oil and the creature's musk mingled horribly in the cold air. The monster was 10 feet away. I didn't try to aim. I just tipped the heavy can and began to drench the path between us as I walked backwards. I emptied half the 5 gallons in a wide black arc right into the snow and across the creature's forelimbs. The kerosene didn't mix with the snow, it simply stained it, turning the white ground into a shimmering black slick. The creature didn't stop. It waddled right through the flammable pool, its greasy fur absorbing the oil. As the beast closed the distance, close enough now that I could feel the steam emanating off its bulk, I pulled the soaked towel out, threw the can aside, and flicked the butane lighter. The thin blue flame fought the wind for a fraction of a second, then held. With a final, desperate roar to myself, I lit the kerosene-soaked rag like a torch and threw it directly at the monster. It hit the creature's torso, and the effect was instantaneous and brutal. The oil-soaked fur and the slick, saturated snow trail ignited with a violent whoosh. The flames were furious, a shocking blast of orange and red against the white snow. The creature was engulfed in a terrible, screaming pillar of fire. The kerosene and the creature's own slick, greasy essence fed the flames instantly, making them burn with a blinding, hot intensity. The monster shrieked, a sound of agony and pure animal terror, and began to thrash violently in the fire. It wasn't waddling anymore. It was rolling in the snow, trying to beat out the inferno. Fortunately for me, the flames stuck to its oiled coat like glue. It was a chaotic, burning silhouette against the backdrop of the swirling blizzard. The thick, black smoke was lost immediately in the white storm. I backed away. The heat of the fire was a shocking contrast to the bitter cold. I watched the creature convulse, unable to stop the burning, unable to heal what was being systematically destroyed. The smell of burning hair, oil, and something metallic sweet was nauseating. Finally, after a minute that felt like an hour, the thrashing stopped. The creature lay still, a massive, charred monument to my desperate resolve. The fire still raged, but the movement was gone. I leaned against the icy wood of the cabin, the shotgun forgotten at my feet. The flames were already starting to melt a ring of snow around the body, but the blizzard continued to rage. The intense heat from the burning carcass was already beginning to recede, fighting a losing battle against the continuous onslaught of the storm. I stood for a moment, letting the sheer exhaustion wash over me, before pragmatism and determination kicked in. The fire was dying, and what was left of this thing couldn't be allowed to heal or even rot here. I grabbed the heavy kerosene can and emptied the last of its contents onto the smoldering pile, coaxing the flames back into a furious roar. I moved the equipment inside, then returned to the blaze with my axe. It took a sickening 15 minutes of hacking and separating what little was left of the creature's bulk. I dragged the blackened chunks through the snow and tossed them back into the heart of the fire. The air was thick with oil and the sweet, terrible smell of burning meat. I was purging the mountain of this evil. When I was done, only a patch of melted snow and a few glowing embers remained. I stood over the pyre, the axe handle cold in my numb hands, watching the last embers fade into the furious white. I turned, intending to head back inside, locked the doors, and faced the grim reality of the split body in the bathroom. That's when I heard it. It wasn't the wind or the groan of a tree. It was a faint, wet, screaming wail, identical to the sound the creature had made when the buckshot first hit it. The sound of ripping canvas and tearing metal. It came from the same direction as before, from the depths of the tree line, from where the young man had come. I spun around, bringing the axe up like a shield, searching the blinding storm. My mind went to the rifle I had left behind in my haste. I had nothing but a bloody, snow-covered axe and a dead fire. The wail came again, closer this time, high-pitched and choked. I took a step backward, preparing to fight when a memory finally pierced the fog of panic. The young man's vacant eyes, his story. Hiking with my girlfriend, Emma.